I've been doing this a long time, and a lot of people have great memories from the different eras I've been part of. Chris Jericho is one of the biggest legends in wrestling. But what should have been a timeless legacy has instead been tainted by controversies that refuse to fade away. Let's explore how one of the greatest to ever do it went from being a hero to getting booed off the stage by the very fans who once cheered him on. The Icon's Twilight. There is a sound that no wrestler, no matter how legendary, how decorated, how many championships they've held, or how many thousands of fans have screamed their name in sold-out arenas around the world, ever wants to hear. It's not the thud of a body hitting the mat. It's not the bell signaling a loss. It's something far more cutting, far more personal, and far more devastating to a performer's soul. It's the chant that has followed one of professional wrestling's most celebrated performers throughout 2025, "Please retire. Please retire. Please retire." And the man those chants are directed at is none other than Chris Jericho, a man who has done, seen, and accomplished virtually everything there is to do in the wild, unpredictable, and often unforgiving world of professional wrestling. 55 years old, he now finds himself standing at a crossroads, one that could very well determine how history remembers one of the greatest performers to ever step between the ropes. Today, we're diving deep into a story that has been brewing for years, a narrative that has split the wrestling community right down the middle, and a question that forces us to confront something we rarely want to acknowledge about our heroes. When does a legend's determination to keep going transform from inspiring to damaging? When does refusing to walk away begin to erase the very accomplishments that made someone legendary in the first place? This is the story of Chris Jericho, and how his refusal to retire may be actively, systematically, and perhaps irreversibly hurting his legacy. But before we can understand where Chris Jericho stands today, we must first understand where he came from, what he built, and why his name deserves to be spoken in the same breath as the absolute titans of this industry. Christopher Keith Irvine was born on November 9, 1970, in Manhasset, New York. Though he would grow up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, he was raised by his father, former NHL player Ted Irvine. From an early age, young Chris was captivated by the spectacle of professional wrestling, drawing particular inspiration from performers like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Shawn Michaels. Men who could tell stories in the ring that transcended mere athletics and entered the realm of genuine art. In 1990, Jericho took the first concrete step toward realizing his dream when he enrolled at the Hart Brothers School of Wrestling. There he trained alongside a young Lance Storm, learning the fundamentals that would serve as the foundation for a career spanning more than 3 decades. His ring name, an undeniable stroke of marketing genius, was derived from the Halloween album Walls of Jericho, a fitting moniker for a man who would spend his career bringing walls crashing down. What followed was nothing short of a wrestling odyssey. Jericho didn't just travel the world, he conquered it. In Mexico, performing under the name Corazon de Leon, he captured the NWA World Middleweight Championship in 1993. In Japan, he honed his craft against some of the most technically gifted wrestlers on the planet. In ECW, he proved he could hang with the hardcore elite, capturing the ECW World Television Championship. In WCW, he became a 4-time cruiserweight champion and engaged in memorable feuds with the likes of Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio. But it was in 1999, with his arrival in the World Wrestling Federation, that Chris Jericho truly announced himself as a main event talent destined for immortality. The countdown clock. The explosion of pyro. That unmistakable voice declaring himself to be Y2J. The interruption of The Rock, then arguably the most over performer in the company. It was a debut for the ages, and it was only the beginning. Over the course of his WWE career, Jericho would accumulate accomplishments that read like a wrestling fantasy: 9 Intercontinental Championship reigns, more than any performer in history, 3 World Heavyweight Championships, and perhaps most significantly, in December 2001, he became the first ever undisputed WWF champion. On that historic night, he defeated both The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin to unify the WWF and WCW World Championships. He achieved Triple Crown status. He achieved Grand Slam status. He headlined WrestleMania. He feuded with virtually every major star of his ERA total. Across his entire career, Chris Jericho has won approximately 40 championships. 40. Let that number sink in for a moment. 40 times, Chris Jericho has stood in the ring with his arm raised, gold draped over his shoulder or wrapped around his waist, proclaimed the best in whatever company he was working for at that particular moment. Championships, as impressive as they are, only tell part of the Chris Jericho story. What truly set him apart, what elevated him from a great wrestler to an all-time legend, was his unmatched ability to reinvent himself. Just when audiences thought they had him figured out, Jericho would evolve. From Y2J to the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, from the List of Jericho to Lou Champion and the Painmaker, every version felt fresh, relevant, and perfectly timed. And it wasn't just wrestling. Jericho fronted the successful metal band Fozzy, wrote 4 New York Times best-selling books, hosted the popular Talk is Jericho podcast, acted in films like Terrifier 3, and created the rock and wrestling rager at SEABY Any Measure. He became one of wrestling's most successful crossover stars. His matches earned 5-star ratings, his promos are studied worldwide, and his influence shaped an entire generation. So when AEW launched in 2019, looking for a face to challenge WWE's dominance, the choice was obvious. Chris Jericho? AEW turned to him, and he delivered, becoming the inaugural AEW World Champion, lending star power and credibility to a fledgling company. For a time, it seemed perfect. Jericho brought mainstream attention. AEW gave him a platform to keep reinventing himself. The Inner Circle became must-watch TV. Le Champion dominated merchandise. Everything seemed to work. But then something shifted. The narrative changed. Jericho went from triumphant veteran leading a revolution to an aging star overstaying his welcome. To understand this, we need to examine what critics call the perfect storm eroding his standing with fans. Dissatisfaction grew around 2023 to 2024, as Jericho shifted from fan-favorite roles to heel-oriented gimmicks like the Learning Tree, perceived by many as outdated, self-indulgent, and disconnected from modern audiences. By early 2025, "Please Retire" chants became common at AEW shows, particularly during his FTW championship defenses, a reflection of fan fatigue from his near-constant presence since AEW's inception. 6 years. 6 years of Jericho-centric storylines, appearing week after week. Even the most devoted fans began experiencing what industry observers call Jericho fatigue. The criticism centers on one key grievance: overexposure. When you appear on nearly every episode for half a decade, even excellence starts to feel mundane. Fans began comparing Jericho's omnipresence to historical cases of performers pushed so relentlessly that audiences eventually turned on them out of sheer exhaustion. The very thing that made Jericho valuable, his star power, his ability to draw eyeballs, his relentless schedule, had started suffocating audience goodwill. Second, critics point to what's been dubbed the Jericho Vortex. The theory suggests that collaborations with Jericho can actually drag down emerging stars rather than elevate them. Names like Hook, Daniel Garcia, and Sammy Guevara are often cited as talents who enter Jericho's orbit with momentum and emerge diminished. Whether fair or not, the perception has taken hold. Jericho prioritizes his own storylines and screen time at the expense of the next generation, using younger talent as supporting players rather than passing the torch. Third, there's the reality of declining in-ring performance. At 55, Jericho is no longer the same performer who tore the house down in his prime. Many fans see his current work as slower, less innovative, and less compelling, and the "Please Retire" chants reflect their frustration with a performer who has, in their eyes, lost a step or several. Fourth, creative and personal controversies have compounded the issue. Gimmicks like Le Champion, Lampion, or the Learning Tree are seen by some as repetitive, a recycling of old formulas with minor tweaks. The reinvention that once defined Jericho's career now feels, to many fans, more like brand management than creative evolution. Calls for his retirement have grown, not out of malice, but to preserve a legacy that many believe risks further damage if prolonged. The AEW fan base has shifted. Many who once supported Jericho now want him gone. The audience he helped build has turned on him, a stunning reversal for a performer once seen as AEW's foundation. But Jericho hasn't backed down. He laughs off retirement chants, pointing to his fitness and in-ring ability as proof he's not done. He disputes the Jericho Vortex, citing the success of wrestlers he's helped elevate, and sees fan backlash as validation that he's still generating reactions. Like the Rolling Stones, Jericho continues on his own terms, ignoring age and criticism, proving he can still command attention. There's something admirable about Jericho's refusal to bow to external pressure, his insistence on leaving on his own terms. But the question remains, what if the fans are right? What if continuing to perform isn't artistic integrity, but ego-driven denial, and that denial is harming the legacy he spent 35 years building? History offers cautionary tales. Wrestling is full of legends who couldn't walk away, choosing relevance over legacy. Hulk Hogan, a global icon, continued wrestling into his 60s in TNA and sporadic WWE returns. Instead of elevating younger stars, he prioritized himself, leading to poor draws and fan backlash, complicating a once unassailable legacy. Ric Flair, the Nature Boy and 16-time world champion, retired perfectly in 2008, only to undo it with multiple comebacks in TNA and the independent circuit into his 70s. Financial need and an inability to leave the spotlight turned his ending into a cautionary tale. Jericho faces the same crossroads, reinvention or overstay, and history shows the line between legend and cautionary tale is thinner than you think. Jericho isn't the first legend to risk tarnishing a legacy. Hogan's TNA runs, Michaels' 2018 return, Goldberg's part-time WWE stints, and The Undertaker's late matches all overshadowed their prime achievements. The pattern is clear: recency bias can turn diminished later performances into lasting marks on a legend's legacy. Jericho's AEW tenure since 2019 mirrors this path. Factions like the Inner Circle and Jericho Appreciation Society have, critics argue, pulled younger talent into his orbit only to diminish them, echoing Hogan's TNA impact on AJ Styles. Chris Jericho's recent gimmicks and AEW presence have drawn fan fatigue, echoing Michaels' sluggish return, Hogan's overexposure, and Goldberg's part-time squash matches. Without reinvention, his legacy risks the same erosion. As of December 2025, Jericho has been absent from AEW since April, with WWE reportedly interested in a farewell storyline. Unlike Flair or Hogan, Jericho doesn't need wrestling. He has Fozzy, podcasts, books, acting, and cruise ships. The tragedy isn't his talent or accomplishments, it's that the man who built his career on reinvention may have lost that instinct. Every legend faces the moment when the crowd says, "Please no more." Jericho stands at that precipice. His Hall of Fame status is secure, but protecting his legacy may be the greatest challenge yet.